We're going to look today at accessible design and how that can actually help your learners when they're engaging with you in your course or your program and having some sort of collateral that runs alongside that. So let's take a look. So accessible design, what actually is that? We're going to dive in and have a little look at some examples in a minute. But first of all, it's really important to remember that accessible graphic design helps people with visual disabilities to understand, navigate and interact with a design. And because there's over 2 million people in the UK that have some sort of visual impairment. And just as a side note, on average, 80% of people that sign up to some sort of course or program where it's a bit more self-led don't finish it. And there's various reasons for that, but don't let accessibility be another hurdle of somebody not finishing your course. So what can you do to make your designs more accessible for everybody, especially those with some sort of visual disability or colour blindness? So, and this can be applicable to anything that you're creating, from your social media graphics through to resources, workbooks, anything like that. The first really easy change to make is to use some highly contrasting colours. So although colour might be an issue, say for somebody that suffers from colour blindness, contrast isn't such a big deal. So make sure that if you're using two colours together, for instance, I've used this example here of a graph, make sure that both the colours there contrast each other. And you can see that here, if we're using quite pale colours here that are quite similar in tone, and I've used this example of black and white to represent the contrast, you can see here somebody that is colourblind will find that a lot harder to differentiate between the two different beginning and end points. Whereas if we've got something that's highly contrast, even in black and white, you can see where one bit finishes and the other bit begins. Another thing to bear in mind is if you're using some sort of colour element to highlight a bit of text. So say, for instance, if you were just using colour alone to differentiate text, again, that might not be visible to somebody that is colourblind or has low vision. So let's take a look at the examples I've got here. So you can see here that we've got two lines of text and we've decided the bottom line we want to pull out and emphasise. So if we just do that with colour alone, and again this is going back to a lighter tonal colour, you can see here that if with somebody that suffers from colour blindness or low vision, that's going to be very hard to see. They're not going to realise that that information is more important than something else. So what you can do instead is you could perhaps make the text a bit bolder, you could put an underline underneath it, and you can use a highlighter that's a little bit more of a higher contrast. So again, that translates over, so it's a lot easier to see and notice straight away that that information is being pulled out. And something else you can do, and again, this is for websites, but you can also do it with PDFs and things like that, is to use alt text that describes an image on a page when somebody's using a screen reader. So it's a really great way to help people understand the visual context behind things, and it's also good for SEO. But just don't go mad, because if there's something there just for decorative purposes, then that can start to get a bit confusing. For instance, here I wouldn't necessarily alt tag this paint stroke at the top here, because it's not key to the page and the information on that page, whereas I would be tempted more to focus on alt text for this image because it's using an example and it's putting it into context for somebody as well. And Canva has a great tool here. At the moment, they always seem to change things around, but at the moment it's, if you go into File, View Settings and check Design Accessibility, it'll actually highlight everything on your design that and give suggestions for things that you can tweak to make everything a little bit more accessible. So that's a really quick and easy way to check if your design is accessible.